Alright, this is my second time recording this, so I just want to get this done. I filmed for like 5 minutes and then my camera cut out, so yep, we're just gonna get right into it. After over 30 years at this point, we finally get, technically, Ghostbusters 3. The 2016 movie doesn't count, and I'll get into why in a bit. I didn't grow up with the first two Ghostbusters films. I saw them probably early teens-ish. That's probably about right. And the first one, I really like. I really love the first Ghostbusters. I don't think I've seen a single person on the internet or in real life who hates Ghostbusters. I really don't think there is. Ghostbusters 2 is where fans get more divided. Some love it, some hate it. It's the Iron Man 3 of this franchise. But unlike Iron Man 3, I don't really like Ghostbusters 2. There are a lot of issues that could have been easily fixed. It kind of makes a lot of stuff in the first movie pointless. Like, especially a lot of the relationships between characters are kind of chucked out the window. And yeah, the story's a mess, and all the scenes with the baby was just dumb. All of those were. I was like, Ghostbusters 2, not a fan. Ghostbusters 2016 makes Ghostbusters 2 look like Avengers fucking Endgame. Oh my god, I hate Ghostbusters 2016. I know some people are like, oh, people are too hard on this movie. They're just mad because of all the controversy. I didn't care about the controversy. I hated the film as it was. It was garbage. It wasn't even just like the gender swap with all the people. I didn't give a shit about that. The problem was it was a comedy that wasn't funny, the story was horrendous, the acting was terrible, the effects looked like garbage, especially for a high-budget film, which is inexcusable with the budget they had. It's terrible, in every right. And I know a lot of people, the one thing I didn't mind about it was the Fall Out Boy version of the Ghostbusters theme. I know a lot of people hate that. I hate the rap segment they threw in, which was awful. But other than that, I thought it was fine. I like Fall Out Boy, so I thought the rendition was fine. Just cut out Missy Elliott out of that. That made the song worse. I think that was the reason why it was hated in the first place. I had to cut her out. Probably would have been fine. But now we come to Ghostbusters Afterlife. And the 2016 one kind of soured my hype for this one, for Afterlife, and the trailers for this movie didn't help. The trailers for this movie made it look incredibly lame. I'm not saying you need a bunch of just flashy images on screen. Warner Brothers thinks that's the only way to make a trailer, and they are wrong. Avengers Endgame proved that, where they showed very little about the film, and they got everybody hyped. So, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the film. It just made the film look cheap. It made it look like a high-budget fan film. But thankfully, it wasn't. This was actually really entertaining. I really enjoyed this film. There is one minor gripe I have with it, but it is a really minor gripe, but I'll get into it later. The trailers made this look like Paul Rudd was kind of the main character in this. He's not. He's in probably a fourth of the film, which, for the character he plays, I think that was appropriate, but trailers were really misleading about that. The real main characters are played by McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard. I can't remember the names they have in the movie, but whatever. They are the grandchildren of Egon Spengler, who is now dead because, well, the actor died years ago. And so they're given his, like, old creepy house that he has, where he was setting up for, where he knew something was going to happen and he was setting up for it. I'm not going to give away what it was, but that's the basic idea of why he's there in the first place. And yeah, so that's the main crux of this film. And of course they run into all the Ghostbuster stuff, like they find the traps, they find the photon blasters, whatever that thing is called. I can't remember what the blaster is called. And of course Wolfhard finds the car in it, which is shown in the trailer. Though this does lead to it's a couple things that are played for a few different jokes, but they kind of contradict themselves. Okay, when Wolfhard is applying for a job here, he claims he's 17. And later on, when he's driving the Ghostbusters car, after he gets out of the shed and gets it to work, Grace says to her friend Podcast, we don't find out his real name, they just call him that throughout the entire film, because that's what he calls himself, so that's what they do. says he failed his driver's test 3 times. I'm like, okay, that's a little funny, I guess. It's kind of a cliche joke, but I guess it works. But then later on, they contradict themselves when they reveal he's actually 15. And he should not be old enough to have taken his driver's test even once, let alone 3 times. So one of these jokes should have been cut. Either the failing the driver's test or the 15 joke. One of those needed to be cut. Because that's a really odd continuity error. It doesn't wreck the movie or anything, far from it, but it's just a really odd error that I can't believe nobody noticed. And I might as well get into the gripe. The one minor gripe I had with this film were the callbacks to the originals. Most of them were like the titular catchphrases that they use, but they were done so poorly that it felt like an afterthought. Like the one point where they get arrested because, well, Wolford doesn't have a license and he's driving around the thing, and they were blowing up half the city trying to catch a ghost. And she, of course, says we get to make one phone call, and of course, the sheriff, I guess, played by Bokeem Woodbine, I didn't even know he was in this. Guess what he says? Yeah, who you gonna call? Yeah, shut up. I actually groaned out loud at that. I went, ugh. At that, that was such a bad callback, and yet, I know there were a few others, but I can't really think of them off the top of my head. Something I did like about the 3 kids who were, while they were chasing ghosts, is that each of them had a specific purpose while fighting them. Wolford was to drive, McKenna Grace was to blast them with the blaster thing. I still can't remember the technical name that they use. And Podcast is to catch it with a trap that's on a little RC car. I don't remember if the RC car was in the original films, but it's a neat idea. And of course they have to link this to the original somehow, so if you couldn't tell from the final trailer, all 3 of the old Ghostbusters show up, including one surprise appearance that I'll get into in a second. And, of course, Gozer is the villain. And normally I hate when movies do this, but I didn't mind. Like, imagine if this was Rise of Skywalker's Palpatine done well. Imagine that, because I didn't mind it. I really did. It actually made sense. It was a good way to bridge this with the first movie. And the movie kind of ignores Ghostbusters 2. It's not one of these films where it retcons Ghostbusters 2, because from what I can tell, it still happened. But they constantly talk about how it happened in 84, but they don't mention the huge catastrophe that happened in 89, which was when the second movie took place. So, yeah, at first I couldn't really tell, but I think Ghostbusters 2 still happened. Which, honestly, I don't care. But yeah, if you can tell, the entirety of the original cast returns, except for Rick Moranis. Because he did retire from acting a while ago, but I'm still surprised they didn't pull him out of retirement, even just for a cameo, because they got, not Ridley Scott, the chick who played Dana, they got Dana in this, who just played Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, there we go. Couldn't think of her name. It was Sigourney Weaver. She had a cameo in this, and of course all the other 3 Ghostbusters who are still alive showed up for the final fight, as it was shown in the trailer. It was glaringly obvious. But, this is of course a spoiler, but I'm gonna get into this anyway. The ghost of Egon Spengler shows up. And they had this thing going earlier on where he was, like, in the shed. Like, his ghost was still around. He was, like, communicating through, like, moving the little lamp around. He would look at something and would help point things around, and every once in a while he would, like, fix stuff while they weren't looking. It was a neat idea. I did not expect him to physically show up, though. Of course, he didn't have any lines, because he wasn't there to actually... I think if the actor hadn't died in real life, I don't think they would have had him die in the movie. I don't think that's what they would have gone with something else, guaranteed. Hell, if he's still alive, this movie might not exist. But that's not really important. He does physically show up. And I like not only does the effect look very good, it is really convincing, but it conveys so much emotion, not only out of the CGI, but out of the characters as well. It is actually very well done. All of the acting in this movie is stellar. The kids do well, the adults do well. This is probably Paul Rudd's best performance outside of the MCU. This is probably my favorite one of his outside of Marvel, because you're not going to beat his performance of Ant-Man. You're not. He was just, like, perfect in that role. But yeah, if you like the original Ghostbusters films, you'll like this. I don't know if you'll love it like I did. I really enjoyed it, because I didn't grow up with Ghostbusters. I think you'll really like it. I really do. If you like the 2016 one for some reason, you may not like it as much because it's not your social justice bullshit that movie pulled. But honestly, I'm really glad about that. That I can't stand 2016. I'm glad they said, nope, we're just going to leave that in the garbage where it belongs. So yeah, that's all I got for Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm going to give this an A-. Yeah, that seems right. I only had those two minor gripes, that one continuity error and the little callbacks, but the rest of the movie was surprisingly well done. So thank you all so much for watching, and what do you think of the Ghostbusters franchise? Do you like the first two? Do you for some reason like that 2016 garbage fire? And did you like this one? And hell, leave your ranking in the comments down below. I'll probably give a ranking of Ghostbusters soon, but I got some other movies to watch first. And speaking of which, I'd go watch Encanto. So I'll see you all at Encanto.